In Gotham City, the deepest wounds were never caused by punches, bullets, or explosions, but by broken trust, hidden lies, and the people Batman once believed he could rely on. From fallen allies like Harvey Dent and Jason Todd, to manipulative figures like Ra's al Ghul and Talia al Ghul, Batman's life has been shaped by betrayal at every level. But perhaps the most terrifying truth is that Gotham itself may have betrayed him long before he ever became the Dark Knight. Tonight, we explore the emotional scars, shattered friendships, secret manipulations, and psychological wars that slowly transformed Bruce Wayne into the lonely guardian watching over a city that never truly stopped breaking his heart. Gotham is built on broken trust. Before Batman ever learned to fear criminals hiding in alleyways or monsters wearing painted smiles beneath the neon lights of Gotham City, the city had already taught its people a far more painful lesson. Because Gotham was never only dangerous due to violence alone. The city became dangerous because trust itself slowly turned fragile there, breaking apart beneath corruption, fear, hidden motives, and betrayal repeated across generations until many citizens stopped believing loyalty could truly survive for long inside Gotham's endless darkness. From the outside, Gotham often appeared powerful and impressive, filled with towering buildings, wealthy families, respected institutions, elegant theaters, crowded financial districts, and old neighborhoods carrying centuries of history beneath the rain-covered streets. Yet beneath that image existed another Gotham entirely, one shaped by secrets and broken promises, where friendships collapsed under pressure, political leaders sold loyalty for power, families hid painful truths from one another, and alliances rarely lasted without eventually turning poisonous. This atmosphere changed how people behaved. In many cities, trust forms naturally between neighbors, co-workers, public officials, and families because people believe systems around them offer at least some protection against betrayal. Gotham slowly destroyed that belief over time. Citizens learned that police officers could be bribed. Politicians could lie publicly while serving hidden interests privately. Wealthy elites could smile during charity events while funding corruption behind closed doors. Criminal organizations could buy influence inside the justice system itself. After enough years passed, Gotham's people adapted emotionally. They became cautious with one another. Parents warned children not to trust strangers. Workers avoided speaking openly about powerful people. Business owners learned that partnerships could quickly become traps. Even friendships often carried invisible tension because Gotham constantly rewarded secrecy and punished vulnerability. The city taught survival through emotional distance, and slowly that distance spread through nearly every part of Gotham life. This was one of Gotham's deepest tragedies. The city did not only create fear of violence, it created fear of betrayal, and no one carried the weight of that betrayal more deeply than Bruce Wayne. Long before becoming Batman, Bruce experienced the first great betrayal of his life in the form of Gotham itself, failing his family. The murder of Thomas and Martha Wayne shattered more than his childhood innocence. It destroyed his trust in the systems surrounding him. Gotham was supposed to protect innocent people, especially people like the Waynes who had spent years helping the city through hospitals, philanthropy, and public service. Yet none of that mattered in the alleyway where Bruce watched his parents die beneath cold streetlights and gunfire. For a child, such trauma changes the entire meaning of safety. Bruce learned early that wealth could not guarantee protection. Goodness could not guarantee survival. Institutions could not guarantee justice. Gotham had betrayed his family despite everything the Waynes gave to the city, and that wound remained inside Bruce long after the blood disappeared from the pavement. As Bruce grew older, that emotional scar shaped nearly every part of his personality. He became obsessed with preparation because trust no longer felt reliable. He trained his body and mind relentlessly because depending on others felt dangerous. Even after becoming Batman, Bruce often struggled emotionally with intimacy and vulnerability because Gotham had already taught him that people, systems, and relationships could collapse suddenly without warning. This pattern repeated constantly throughout Batman's life. Again and again, the people closest to him became sources of emotional pain, disappointment, manipulation, or betrayal. Some betrayed him intentionally. Others simply failed him during moments when he needed them most. Yet each experience reinforced the same painful lesson Gotham taught from the beginning, namely that trust always carried risk. And Gotham itself seemed designed to encourage that fear. The city rewarded deception constantly. Criminals survived through lies and hidden identities. Politicians climbed higher through manipulation and secret deals. Wealthy elites protected themselves behind false public images. Even ordinary citizens often concealed parts of themselves simply to survive emotionally inside such an unstable environment. Over time, Gotham became a city where nobody fully revealed their true self. Masks existed everywhere, long before Batman wore one. Some masks were literal, while others were emotional, social, or political. Public officials pretended to serve justice while protecting corruption privately. Families hid painful truths from one another to preserve appearances. Criminal organizations disguised violence beneath legitimate businesses. Gotham trained people to divide themselves between public identity and hidden reality until honesty itself became difficult to maintain. This atmosphere deeply affected Batman's relationships. Bruce Wayne wanted allies, but he rarely knew how to trust them completely. Even when surrounded by people loyal to him, part of his mind remained guarded constantly, preparing for disappointment or betrayal, because Gotham's history had conditioned him to expect it eventually. He trusted carefully, slowly, and often incompletely, and perhaps the saddest part was that many of Batman's greatest wounds came not from enemies trying to kill him, but from people he genuinely cared about. That emotional truth became central to Batman's entire story. Criminals could injure Bruce physically, yet betrayal attacked something far more vulnerable. Every broken friendship, corrupted ally, manipulated relationship, or shattered partnership reopened the same emotional wound left behind after his parents died. Gotham repeatedly reminded Bruce that the people closest to him could become the source of his deepest suffering. Even within families, betrayal shaped Gotham's history constantly. Powerful bloodlines hid secrets across generations. Parents manipulated children to preserve wealth and influence. Emotional neglect spread quietly through wealthy households where reputation mattered more than honesty. Criminal families turned loyalty into obligation enforced through fear rather than love. Gotham transformed family itself into something unstable and emotionally dangerous. Friendships suffered similarly. Many relationships inside Gotham carried hidden motives beneath the surface. Some people approached Bruce Wayne because of his wealth and influence, rather than genuine connection. Others envied him secretly while pretending loyalty publicly. Gotham's atmosphere encouraged resentment, obsession, and emotional isolation because the city constantly compared power against weakness, wealth against poverty, survival against vulnerability. This created enormous psychological pressure. People living inside Gotham rarely felt emotionally safe enough to lower their guard fully. Citizens learned to study tone of voice, hidden motives, political connections, and emotional shifts carefully because betrayal often arrived quietly before revealing itself openly. Trust became something fragile that could disappear overnight through corruption, manipulation, fear, or desperation. Even Batman's mission itself reflected this broken emotional world. Bruce Wayne became Batman partly because he stopped trusting Gotham's institutions to protect innocent people effectively. The police could be corrupted, courts could be manipulated, politicians could be bought, organized crime could infiltrate legitimate systems. Batman emerged because Bruce believed relying on existing structures no longer worked. That belief carried enormous loneliness inside it. Because once someone loses faith in institutions, relationships, and systems simultaneously, isolation often follows naturally. Batman operated outside Gotham's official structures because he trusted his own mission more than the city's existing authorities. Yet this independence also separated him emotionally from ordinary life. Bruce became someone constantly watching from rooftops and shadows, protecting people while struggling to feel fully connected to them, and Gotham reinforced this separation endlessly. Every corruption scandal strengthened Batman's distrust. Every betrayal confirmed his fears. Every failed alliance reminded him how dangerous emotional vulnerability could become inside the city. Gotham turned caution into survival instinct until even moments of happiness often carried quiet tension beneath them, as though Bruce expected those moments to collapse. Eventually, too, the city shaped its villains similarly. Many of Gotham's criminals emerged from broken trust as well. Some were abandoned by families, betrayed by institutions, manipulated by powerful people, or emotionally destroyed through trauma and corruption. Gotham repeatedly created people who stopped believing in loyalty, morality, or justice because betrayal consumed those beliefs long before Batman encountered them. This was what made Gotham feel emotionally cursed. The city did not simply contain betrayal occasionally. Betrayal became woven into its culture, history, and psychological atmosphere. People expected disappointment there. They expected hidden motives. They expected secrets waiting beneath public appearances. And because betrayal became so common, genuine trust started feeling almost unnatural. That emotional exhaustion affected ordinary citizens deeply. Families struggled maintaining closeness beneath constant fear and instability. Romantic relationships fractured under pressure. Honest officials became isolated. Children inherited distrust from parents, already damaged by Gotham's endless cycles of corruption and violence. Trauma spread quietly through the city, like rainwater leaking into old foundations. Over time, Gotham created generations of people emotionally prepared for betrayal before betrayal even happened. Citizens learned not to hope too much because disappointment felt inevitable eventually. That hopelessness protected Gotham's darker systems powerfully because emotionally exhausted populations rarely unite strongly enough to challenge corruption for long. Yet despite everything, Batman continued trying to trust people anyway. That fact mattered enormously. Bruce Wayne could have surrendered completely to isolation after everything Gotham taught him about betrayal. Yet part of him continued searching for loyalty, friendship, and connection, even while fearing emotional pain constantly. He built alliances, he protected partners, he cared deeply for people, despite knowing Gotham often destroyed the things people loved most. That contradiction defined Batman emotionally. He feared betrayal because he understood it intimately, yet he never stopped hoping trust might still survive somewhere beneath Gotham's darkness. And perhaps that hope, fragile and wounded as it remained, represented the only thing preventing Gotham from consuming him completely, like it consumed so many others before him. Because inside Gotham, betrayal was everywhere. Inside families, inside friendships, inside institutions, inside the city itself. And the deeper Batman descended into Gotham's endless night, the more often he discovered that the people capable of hurting him most were rarely strangers hiding in shadows. They were the people he once trusted enough to let close. The murder that created Batman, before Bruce Wayne ever became Batman, before the rooftop chases, the endless investigations, the battles against Gotham's criminals, and the war against fear itself. There was only a child, standing alone in a cold alleyway, beside the bodies of his parents, while the city around him continued moving, as though nothing important had happened at all. That moment became the center of Bruce Wayne's entire existence, not only because he witnessed death, but because he experienced something far deeper and more painful beneath it. The feeling that Gotham City itself had betrayed his family. To outsiders, the murder of Thomas and Martha Wayne sometimes appears simple compared to the larger horrors Gotham would later experience. A robbery gone wrong, a criminal desperate for money, Another act of violence inside a dangerous city, already drowning in corruption and fear. Yet for Bruce, the emotional meaning reached far beyond the gunshots echoing through Crime Alley that night. Because children believe certain things about the world before tragedy teaches them otherwise. Children believe parents can protect them. They believe good people are rewarded for kindness. They believe cities have rules keeping innocent families safe. They believe police officers, politicians, and public institutions exist to prevent terrible things from happening without reason. Bruce Wayne believed those things once too, especially because he grew up surrounded by privilege, wealth, and public admiration connected to the legacy of the Wayne family. Thomas Wayne was not only rich, he was respected. He spent years funding hospitals, supporting public programs, helping struggling citizens, and trying to improve Gotham through medicine and philanthropy rather than fear or political manipulation. Martha Wayne carried the same compassion, dedicating herself to charitable work and social causes throughout the city. Together they represented something Gotham desperately needed: the idea that wealth and influence could still be used for kindness instead of corruption. Yet none of that protected them. That truth shattered Bruce emotionally, because if people as powerful, respected, and generous as Thomas and Martha Wayne could die helplessly beneath Gotham's streetlights, then what chance did ordinary citizens living without money or influence truly have? Bruce's trauma did not only come from grief, it came from realization. Gotham was not safe. Gotham was not fair. Gotham could swallow innocent people without warning, no matter how good they were. And perhaps most painful of all, the city continued functioning afterward. Cars still moved through the streets, politicians still gave speeches, wealthy elites still attended parties. Newspapers reported the murders briefly before moving toward newer headlines. Gotham absorbed the deaths of Thomas and Martha Wayne the same way it absorbed countless other tragedies, quickly and without lasting change. For Bruce, that emotional indifference felt unbearable. The city, his parents, spent their lives helping failed them completely during the moment they needed protection most. Gotham's police could not prevent the crime. Its institutions could not stop the violence. Its public order collapsed instantly inside one dark alley, despite all the wealth, authority, and structure surrounding the city on the surface. That contradiction stayed inside Bruce permanently, because Gotham always looked powerful from a distance. Towering buildings rose above the skyline. Police departments operated across the city. Courts, hospitals, financial institutions, political offices, and enormous corporations all presented the appearance of civilization and order. Yet beneath that polished surface existed fear, desperation, inequality, and violence strong enough to destroy innocent lives within seconds. Bruce understood this before most children even learned how complicated the world could become. The emotional betrayal cut deeper because of who his parents were. Thomas and Martha Wayne genuinely believed Gotham could improve. They invested time, money, and hope into the city because they wanted to heal it rather than escape from it. Bruce witnessed their compassion constantly growing up. He saw how they treated people kindly, regardless of status. He watched them dedicate themselves to helping Gotham's struggling citizens, and still Gotham killed them. This transformed Bruce's grief into obsession slowly over time. At first, there was only confusion and pain, the emotional emptiness following traumatic loss too large for a child to fully understand. But as Bruce grew older, that emptiness hardened into anger, directed not only toward criminals, but toward Gotham itself, and the systems that allowed such violence to continue endlessly generation after generation. He began questioning everything. Why did organized crime flourish despite massive police departments? Why did corruption survive inside institutions supposedly designed to stop it? Why did wealth remain concentrated among elites while poorer neighborhoods suffered constant violence and neglect? Why did politicians promise reform repeatedly while Gotham's streets grew more dangerous each year? Bruce no longer trusted the answers public institutions offered. That distrust became one of the defining parts of his personality, long before he ever wore the cape and cowl. He viewed Gotham's systems as compromised, weak, or dishonest, because his childhood trauma convinced him those systems failed fundamentally during the most important moment of his life. This emotional wound shaped nearly every decision Bruce later made. He did not become Batman because he simply hated criminals. He became Batman because he stopped believing Gotham's institutions could truly protect innocent people without someone forcing fear back against the city's darkness directly. Police officers could be bribed. Politicians could be manipulated. Judges could be pressured. Criminal empires could infiltrate legitimate systems. Bruce Wayne saw weakness and corruption everywhere because Gotham had already shown him how fragile civilization really was beneath the surface. That was why he trained himself so obsessively. Every skill Bruce learned reflected his fear of helplessness, returning again someday. Martial arts, forensic science, detective work, escape techniques, criminal psychology, surveillance, physical conditioning, and strategic planning all became ways of protecting himself emotionally from ever feeling powerless, like the child standing in Crime Alley beside his parents' bodies. Batman therefore emerged not only from grief, but from distrust. Bruce trusted preparation more than institutions. He trusted his own investigation more than official reports. He trusted fear as a weapon, because Gotham itself already operated through fear constantly. The city taught him that criminals respected power and intimidation more readily than morality or law. Yet beneath all of Batman's strength remained the frightened child who watched Gotham fail his family. That emotional core explains why betrayal became such a powerful theme throughout Batman's life later. Bruce never fully recovered from losing trust in the world during childhood. Even when surrounded by allies, part of him remained emotionally guarded because Gotham had already taught him how quickly safety could disappear, and Gotham continued reinforcing those fears constantly. Corruption scandals proved institutions remained compromised. Violent criminals escaped justice repeatedly. Organized crime adapted faster than law enforcement could respond. Public officials lied. Hidden conspiracies emerged beneath Gotham's history. Every new revelation strengthened Bruce's belief that the city itself remained deeply broken at its core. The murder of Thomas and Martha Wayne therefore became more than personal tragedy. It became symbolic of Gotham's larger sickness. Their deaths represented the failure of wealth to guarantee safety, the failure of public order to prevent violence, and the failure of institutions to protect good people consistently. Bruce interpreted their murder not as isolated bad luck, but as evidence that Gotham's systems had already decayed beyond what ordinary solutions could repair. This perspective isolated him emotionally from normal life. Most people eventually heal enough from childhood trauma to trust society again, at least partially. Bruce Wayne never truly did. Gotham's endless corruption kept reopening the wound repeatedly, reminding him why Batman needed to exist in the first place. Even Bruce's public identity reflected this divide. As Bruce Wayne, he performed the role Gotham expected from wealthy elites, attending events, managing business responsibilities, and maintaining appearances within the city's upper class. But beneath that mask existed Batman, the identity Bruce trusted more deeply because Batman confronted Gotham's darkness directly rather than pretending civilization functioned normally. The irony, of course, was that Bruce still loved Gotham despite everything. That made the betrayal hurt even more. He could have abandoned the city entirely after inheriting the Wayne fortune. He could have escaped to safer places far away from Gotham's corruption and violence. Yet Bruce remained because part of him still believed the city might someday become something better than the place that killed his parents. That fragile hope battled constantly against his distrust. Some nights, Batman looked across Gotham's skyline and saw only endless corruption beyond repair. Other nights, he saw ordinary citizens trying desperately to survive and protect one another, despite impossible circumstances. Gotham contained both cruelty and resilience at once, and Bruce never fully stopped struggling between hatred for what the city had done and love for the people still trapped inside it. The alleyway itself became almost sacred within Bruce's memory. Crime Alley represented the exact moment his childhood ended, and Gotham revealed its true face to him. The cold pavement, the sound of gunfire, Martha's pearls scattering across the ground, Thomas Wayne collapsing helplessly beside his family. All of it remained permanently alive inside Bruce's mind, no matter how many years passed afterward. Batman was born there emotionally, long before Bruce created the costume, because in that moment, a child learned the world could betray even the people who deserved kindness most. And once someone learns that lesson deeply enough, they never fully see cities, institutions, or humanity the same way again. For Bruce Wayne, Gotham's greatest betrayal was not simply that his parents died. It was that the city taught him innocence could disappear forever in a single night beneath the pale glow of a streetlight, while the rest of the world kept moving as though nothing had changed at all. Harvey Dent, Gotham's fallen hero. Among all the people Batman ever tried to save inside Gotham City, few mattered to him emotionally as deeply as Harvey Dent, because Harvey represented something Bruce Wayne desperately wanted to believe still existed within Gotham, namely the possibility that the city could one day heal through lawful justice instead of fear, violence, or vigilantism. Before Harvey became Two-Face, before the coin flips, the scarred face, and the psychological collapse that would eventually consume him, he stood as one of Gotham's brightest symbols of hope, a man intelligent enough, brave enough, and determined enough to challenge corruption from inside the legal system itself. That hope mattered enormously to Bruce. For years, Batman fought criminals from rooftops and shadows because he no longer trusted Gotham's institutions completely. Police departments had been corrupted. Politicians protected powerful interests. Organized crime controlled entire sections of the city through fear and bribery. Bruce believed Gotham required Batman because the system alone could not defeat the darkness spreading through the city. But Harvey Dent offered a different possibility. Unlike many officials inside Gotham, Harvey appeared genuinely committed to justice. As district attorney, he aggressively pursued organized crime, corrupt officials, and criminal networks other people feared confronting openly. He spoke with confidence and conviction during public appearances, refusing to hide behind empty political language while Gotham continued suffering. Citizens began viewing him as rare proof that honest leadership might still survive inside the city's broken institutions. Batman noticed that immediately. For perhaps the first time in years, Bruce saw someone operating within Gotham's legal system who truly seemed capable of creating change without compromise. Harvey was not perfect, but he possessed courage strong enough to challenge forces, terrifying most politicians and prosecutors into silence. That courage created something dangerous inside Gotham, hope, and hope always attracts enemies inside Gotham. The city's criminal empires understood quickly that Harvey Dent represented a serious threat because he attacked corruption directly rather than accepting the quiet arrangements many officials tolerated for survival. Organized crime families, like the Falcone family and the Maroney family, recognized that Harvey could inspire public belief in lawful justice again if he succeeded long enough. That possibility frightened Gotham's corrupt systems deeply. Because Gotham survived partly by convincing citizens meaningful reform was impossible, Harvey Dent challenged that belief openly. He worked beside honest officers like James Gordon while coordinating indirectly with Batman himself, creating an unusual alliance between lawful authority and vigilantism centered around the same goal, namely reclaiming Gotham from corruption and organized crime. For Bruce Wayne, Harvey became more than an ally. He became emotional proof that Batman might not need to exist forever. That dream mattered quietly to Bruce, even if he rarely admitted it aloud. Batman was born from trauma, grief, and distrust toward Gotham's institutions. But part of Bruce still longed for a city capable of protecting itself through justice rather than fear. Harvey Dent represented that dream more clearly than almost anyone Bruce had ever encountered. And perhaps that was why Harvey's fall hurt so deeply later, because Gotham did not simply destroy another good man. It destroyed Bruce Wayne's belief that lawful hope could survive there for long. Yet, the tragedy surrounding Harvey Dent began long before acid scarred his face publicly. The psychological damage already existed beneath the surface, quietly growing through years of pressure, trauma, and emotional instability, hidden carefully behind Harvey's confident public image. Gotham has a way of doing that to people. The city places enormous pressure on anyone trying to fight its corruption honestly. Harvey faced constant threats from organized crime. Criminals targeted his reputation, his safety, and his emotional stability repeatedly. Political pressure surrounded him constantly. Public expectations grew heavier each year. Gotham demanded strength from Harvey endlessly, while giving very little emotional protection in return. And beneath all that pressure, Harvey carried deeper wounds already. Different versions of his story explore childhood trauma, emotional abuse, suppressed anger, and psychological instability existing long before his transformation into Two-Face. Whether through abusive family experiences or years spent suppressing rage beneath his controlled public image, Harvey's mind slowly fractured beneath pressures he struggled to manage completely. This made his tragedy especially painful because Harvey genuinely wanted to do good. He believed in justice. He believed Gotham could improve. He fought corruption sincerely, despite the enormous risks surrounding him. Yet Gotham attacked him from every direction until the emotional strain became unbearable. Batman failed to see how close Harvey already stood to collapse. That failure haunted Bruce deeply afterward. Because Bruce Wayne understood trauma perhaps better than anyone, yet even he missed the warning signs growing inside his friend. Harvey's obsession with justice slowly turned into emotional instability. His anger deepened beneath the surface. The pressure of constantly battling Gotham's corruption while carrying hidden psychological wounds created enormous internal conflict, and Gotham exploited those weaknesses mercilessly. Organized crime figures targeted Harvey specifically because they recognized how important he had become symbolically. Destroying Harvey Dent meant destroying public hope alongside him. If Gotham's brightest legal champion could fall, then citizens would once again believe corruption remained unbeatable. The attack that transformed Harvey physically, therefore, carried enormous symbolic meaning too. When acid burned half his face during the courtroom attack connected to Sal Maroni, the damage extended far beyond physical injury. Harvey lost more than his appearance that day. He lost emotional balance, identity, and the fragile hope holding his mind together beneath years of pressure. The transformation into Two-Face represented psychological collapse made visible. One side of Harvey remained connected to his old ideals, intelligence, and desire for justice. The other side surrendered to bitterness, rage, fatalism, and obsession with chance. The scarred face became external proof of the division already growing inside his mind for years before the accident happened. That duality reflected Gotham itself perfectly. The city constantly balanced civilization against violence, hope against corruption, justice against fear. Harvey Dent embodied that conflict emotionally until the pressure tore him apart completely. And for Batman, watching Harvey become Two-Face felt like witnessing Gotham destroy one of its last honest possibilities from within. Bruce blamed himself deeply, not only because he failed to protect Harvey physically, but because he believed he failed emotionally too. Batman recognized parts of himself inside Harvey. Both men were shaped by trauma. Both carried obsessive personalities. Both struggled with anger beneath controlled public identities. The difference was that Bruce transformed his trauma into Batman, while Harvey's trauma eventually consumed him completely. That realization terrified Bruce, because Harvey's collapse forced Batman to confront an unbearable possibility. If someone as intelligent, brave, and idealistic as Harvey Dent could fall into madness and violence despite genuinely wanting to save Gotham, then perhaps the city itself corrupted everyone eventually, no matter how strong they seemed initially. Two-Face therefore became more than another criminal to Batman. He became living evidence of failure. Every time Batman encountered Harvey afterward, He saw the destruction of lawful hope staring back at him. The coin flips, the split personality, the obsession with duality, all of it reminded Bruce that Gotham had taken someone he trusted deeply and transformed him into another symbol of chaos. And unlike many villains, Harvey remembered who he once was. That made everything worse. Fragments of the old Harvey Dent still existed beneath Two-Face's psychological instability. Moments of guilt, regret, or emotional conflict occasionally surfaced, reminding Batman that his friend had not disappeared completely, even while becoming dangerous and unpredictable. Those moments hurt Bruce enormously because they kept hope alive just enough to make the tragedy feel endless. Batman often approached Harvey differently from other criminals because part of him still believed Harvey might somehow return someday. Bruce remembered the man who once stood beside him, fighting corruption with genuine courage and conviction. He remembered conversations about justice, reform, and Gotham's future. He remembered believing Harvey represented the answer Gotham needed. Now that answer carried a gun and flipped a coin to decide human lives. The emotional betrayal cut deeply because Harvey's fall felt personal in ways many other tragedies did not. Bruce Wayne trusted Harvey Dent, not only as an ally, but as proof that Gotham's legal institutions could still produce genuine heroes. Losing Harvey therefore damaged Bruce's already fragile trust in the system even further. After Two-Face emerged, Batman became more isolated emotionally. If Harvey Dent could not survive Gotham's pressure without breaking psychologically, then who could? The city seemed capable of corrupting even its brightest defenders eventually. That realization strengthened Batman's belief that Gotham's darkness reached deeper than individual criminals or political scandals alone. It infected people emotionally. Harvey's transformation also reinforced one of Gotham's cruelest patterns, namely that the city often destroys the people trying hardest to save it. Honest officials become corrupted, traumatized, or isolated. Heroes sacrifice happiness and emotional stability. Citizens carrying hope eventually experience betrayal or disappointment severe enough to crush that hope entirely. Two-Face embodied that emotional destruction perfectly, and somewhere beneath the rain-soaked streets and pale courtroom lights of Gotham, Bruce Wayne carried the weight of Harvey Dent's fall, like another scar hidden beneath the Batman costume, because long before many later betrayals shattered his trust, Harvey had already taught him one painful truth. Sometimes Gotham does not merely defeat good people. Sometimes it transforms them into part of the darkness they once tried to fight. Ra's al Ghul and the false father figure. Among all the enemies Batman faced throughout his long war against the darkness surrounding Gotham City, few understood Bruce Wayne as deeply or disturbed him as personally as Ra's al Ghul, because Ra's was never simply another criminal seeking power, wealth, or chaos. He was something far more complicated and emotionally dangerous, a man who saw Batman not merely as an opponent, but as a potential heir, student, and successor capable of carrying forward his vision for the world. That twisted admiration created one of the most emotionally conflicted relationships in Batman's entire history, because unlike Gotham's ordinary villains who hated Batman openly, Ra's respected him deeply while still trying to reshape him into something Bruce could never become willingly. The first thing that made Ra's al Ghul so unsettling was his patience. Most criminals inside Gotham acted from greed, revenge, desperation, or madness, reacting emotionally to the world around them with violence and unpredictability. Ra's operated differently. He thought in decades instead of days. His plans stretched across generations. He studied civilizations the way historians study ancient ruins, calmly examining how societies rise, decay, and collapse beneath corruption, greed, and overpopulation. To Ra's, humanity itself had become diseased. He believed modern civilization poisoned the world through endless violence, environmental destruction, corruption, and moral weakness. Cities like Gotham represented everything he despised most about humanity, places overflowing with crime, greed, pollution, fear, and institutional decay. While Batman wanted to save Gotham despite its darkness, Ra's believed such cities needed destruction before the world could heal properly. And yet, despite this enormous ideological difference, Ra's admired Batman almost immediately. That admiration mattered deeply because Bruce Wayne rarely encountered people who understood him intellectually and emotionally at the same time. Ra's recognized Batman's discipline, intelligence, pain, and obsessive sense of purpose. He saw a man shaped by trauma yet strong enough to transform suffering into relentless action rather than surrendering completely to despair. In many ways, Ra's saw a younger version of himself within Bruce. That connection created emotional tension from the very beginning. Ra's did not approach Batman like ordinary enemies who underestimated him. Instead, he approached Bruce with respect, almost warmth at times, treating him less like a rival and more like someone worthy of inheritance. He admired Batman's detective mind, physical skill, strategic thinking, and refusal to compromise his mission despite overwhelming psychological pressure. For Bruce Wayne, this felt both fascinating and deeply uncomfortable, because part of him longed for understanding. Bruce spent most of his life emotionally isolated beneath the weight of Batman's mission. Very few people truly understood the obsession driving him, the loneliness shaping him, or the emotional burden of carrying Gotham's suffering constantly. Ra's understood those things frighteningly well. Yet that understanding always carried manipulation hidden beneath it. Ra's never respected Bruce simply out of kindness or admiration alone. He respected him because he wanted to control him eventually. That was the emotional trap at the center of their relationship. Ra's believed Batman possessed the potential to become the perfect successor to his empire and ideology. He saw Bruce Wayne as someone intelligent enough, disciplined enough, and emotionally wounded enough to eventually accept the idea that civilization could not be saved through ordinary morality or legal justice anymore. In Ra's mind, Batman already stood halfway toward becoming like him. After all, Bruce operated outside the law. He used fear as a weapon. He believed corruption infected Gotham deeply. He understood how weak public institutions could become beneath greed and violence. Ra's viewed these similarities as proof Batman might someday abandon his moral limits entirely if pushed far enough. And so he constantly tried pushing him, sometimes through mentorship, sometimes through emotional manipulation, sometimes through betrayal disguised as guidance. Ra's often presented himself like a father figure to Bruce in ways that felt deeply unsettling because Bruce Wayne lost his parents so young and carried that emotional absence throughout his life. Unlike many villains who simply attacked Batman physically, Ra's targeted emotional vulnerabilities connected to Bruce's need for meaning, legacy, and understanding. He praised Batman when others feared him. He spoke to Bruce like an equal rather than a monster. He offered him purpose beyond Gotham's endless cycle of crime and corruption. That emotional strategy became even more complicated through Talia al Ghul, Ra's daughter, whose relationship with Bruce created another layer of loyalty, attraction, and manipulation surrounding the Al Ghul family. Through Talia, Ra's attempted to pull Bruce emotionally closer into his world, almost like inviting him into a twisted version of family belonging. But beneath every moment of admiration remained control. Ra's respected Batman deeply, yet he never truly respected Bruce's right to choose his own path independently when that path conflicted with his vision for the world. This was where the betrayal always emerged eventually. Because Ra's admired Batman only as long as Batman moved closer toward becoming the man Ra's wanted him to be. The moment Bruce refused completely, Ra's returned to manipulation, coercion, violence, and deception without hesitation. That contradiction wounded Batman emotionally more than he often admitted aloud. Bruce could tolerate enemies hating him openly because hatred felt honest. Ra's was harder to confront because genuine respect existed beneath the manipulation. There were moments when Bruce almost wished things could have been different. Moments where conversations between them felt strangely close to mentorship or understanding rather than conflict. But Ra's always destroyed those moments eventually through betrayal. Again and again, He violated Batman's trust in pursuit of his own ideology. He lied about intentions. He manipulated situations secretly. He endangered innocent lives to force Bruce towards certain choices. He used emotional pressure, family connections, and psychological games to weaken Batman's resistance. Every apparent alliance eventually revealed hidden motives beneath it. That pattern became devastating because Bruce repeatedly wanted to believe some part of Ra's admiration was genuine enough to create honesty between them. And perhaps part of it was genuine. That was what made the betrayal more painful. Ra's truly respected Batman, but his respect remained poisoned by obsession and control. He could not accept Bruce Wayne as an independent equal, choosing a different moral path. Instead, he constantly tried reshaping Batman into something closer to himself. This reflected one of Batman's deepest emotional fears. Bruce Wayne spent his entire life fighting against corruption, violence, and psychological darkness, while secretly fearing how close he himself stood to those things internally. Ra's exploited that fear constantly by presenting Batman with terrifying reflections of what Bruce might become if he abandoned his moral limits fully. Because in some ways, Ra's represented an older, more extreme version of Batman. Both men were highly intelligent. Both used fear strategically. Both viewed society as deeply broken. Both sacrificed ordinary happiness for larger missions. Both believed extraordinary action was necessary to confront civilization's failures. The crucial difference was morality. Batman still believed innocent lives mattered absolutely. Ra's believed destruction could become justified if it served a greater vision for humanity's future. That ideological divide created enormous emotional conflict between them, because Bruce understood enough of Ra's logic to recognize how dangerously persuasive it could become under the right circumstances, especially after traumatic losses, especially during moments when Gotham's corruption felt endless and hopeless. Ra's often appeared during periods when Bruce felt emotionally exhausted or disillusioned, almost sensing moments of vulnerability where Batman questioned whether his mission truly changed anything anymore. During those moments, Ra's presented simpler solutions. Destroy corruption completely. Remove weak systems entirely. Use overwhelming force to reset civilization itself. Part of what frightened Bruce was recognizing how tempting certainty could become after enough years spent fighting Gotham's endless darkness. Yet Batman always resisted eventually, because despite everything, Bruce still believed human life mattered more than ideological purity or control. He refused to become someone willing to sacrifice innocent people for abstract visions of global balance or environmental restoration. That refusal repeatedly enraged Ra's, and each time Bruce rejected him fully, the betrayal returned again. Ra's would attack Gotham, manipulate Talia, unleash assassins from the League of Assassins, or engineer catastrophic plans, forcing Batman into direct opposition against him once more. Every alliance collapsed beneath the same emotional truth, namely, that Ra's valued his vision for the world more than he valued Bruce Wayne's autonomy or moral boundaries. For Batman, this became one of the saddest betrayals in his life, because unlike many enemies, Ra's genuinely could have been something closer to mentor or ally under different circumstances. Bruce rarely encountered older figures who understood him so completely. But Ra's understanding always became another weapon eventually. That weapon cut especially deep, because Bruce Wayne spent much of his life searching unconsciously for guidance, connection, and father figures after losing Thomas Wayne so young. Ra's exploited that emotional emptiness repeatedly, offering approval, legacy, and belonging before revealing the controlling ideology hidden underneath. And still, despite everything, some strange form of mutual respect survived between them. Even during battles, even during betrayals, Batman often treated Ra's differently from other villains because he recognized intelligence, discipline, and tragedy beneath the manipulation. Ra's often spared Bruce opportunities he would never grant ordinary enemies, because he still viewed Batman as worthy of inheritance, even after countless conflicts. That emotional complexity made their relationship feel almost tragic. Because beneath the violence and betrayal existed the possibility of genuine understanding ruined repeatedly by ideology and obsession. Ra's could never stop trying to reshape Batman. Batman could never become the man Ra's wanted. And somewhere between admiration and betrayal, they remained trapped together, like distorted reflections, staring across Gotham's endless darkness at the paths each other refused to take. Jason Todd, the Robin Batman, couldn't save. Among all the people who ever stood beside Batman beneath the dark skyline of Gotham City, few relationships carried as much pain, anger, love, guilt, and emotional destruction as the one he shared with Jason Todd. Because Jason was never simply another sidekick wearing the Robin costume. He was a wounded child shaped by Gotham's cruelty long before Bruce Wayne found him. A boy carrying rage inside himself so deep that even Batman, despite all his training and intelligence, never fully understood how dangerous that pain would eventually become. Jason entered Bruce's life during a period when Batman already believed he understood how mentorship worked. After years beside the first Robin, Bruce convinced himself that bringing young partners into his mission could create something meaningful, almost like building a family out of broken people Gotham might otherwise destroy. Yet Jason differed from the beginning in ways Bruce failed to fully recognize until far too late. Where some children feared Batman, Jason challenged him. Where others obeyed carefully, Jason pushed boundaries constantly. And beneath all of that aggression existed something much sadder, a desperate need to matter to someone. Jason Todd grew up surrounded by abandonment, instability, crime, and emotional neglect. Gotham had shaped him early through poverty and violence, teaching him survival before childhood truly had a chance to exist properly. Different versions of his story changed certain details, yet the emotional truth remains similar across them all. Jason came from hardship. He learned anger before safety. He learned distrust before comfort. Bruce Wayne saw that pain immediately because he recognized parts of himself inside the boy. Both lost their childhoods to Gotham. Both carried unresolved rage beneath emotional armor. Both struggled with loneliness and abandonment. But while Bruce transformed his trauma into discipline and control, Jason's pain remained louder, raw, and far more unstable emotionally. That difference shaped everything between them. When Bruce took Jason in and allowed him to become the new Robin, part of him genuinely believed he was saving the boy from Gotham's darkness. Batman saw potential beneath Jason's recklessness. He saw intelligence, courage, resilience, and emotional strength hidden beneath the anger. Bruce hoped mentorship, structure, and belonging might guide Jason towards something better than the violent future Gotham seemed ready to give him otherwise. And for a while, there were moments where it almost worked. Jason wanted Bruce's approval desperately, even when he pretended otherwise. Beneath the sarcasm, rebellion, and aggressive behavior existed a child longing for family and purpose. Fighting beside Batman gave Jason meaning. It gave him identity beyond survival and abandonment. For perhaps the first time in his life, someone believed he could become something important. But Gotham's damage inside Jason already ran deep. Unlike Bruce, Jason struggled controlling his anger once violence entered the situation. Criminals did not simply frustrate him morally, they triggered emotional fury connected to everything Gotham had already taken from him throughout his life. He saw criminals as predators destroying innocent people, the same way his own life had been damaged by violence and neglect. Batman noticed this increasingly over time. Jason became more aggressive during missions, more impulsive, more willing to cross moral lines. Bruce considered dangerous. He frightened criminals not only through skill, but through genuine emotional rage simmering beneath the Robin costume. Sometimes, Bruce saw Jason using excessive force during confrontations. Other times, he sensed hatred growing stronger inside the boy after especially brutal cases. These moments created constant tension between them. Bruce tried teaching restraint, discipline, and moral boundaries because Batman understood how easily rage could consume someone entirely if left uncontrolled. but Jason often interpreted those lessons differently. To him, Batman's refusal to use lethal force sometimes looked weak or unrealistic inside a city as violent as Gotham. This ideological divide slowly widened the emotional distance between them. Jason respected Bruce deeply, yet he also carried growing frustration toward Batman's methods. He witnessed criminals escape justice repeatedly. He watched corrupt systems fail innocent people constantly. He saw Gotham's worst predators survive over and over, despite everything Batman did to stop them. And somewhere inside Jason's wounded mind, a dangerous question began growing louder. What if Batman's rules were the reason Gotham never truly changed? Bruce sensed this conflict, but struggled, understanding how serious it had become emotionally. Part of the problem was that Batman himself rarely processed emotions in healthy ways. Bruce understood discipline, strategy, and mission focus, yet emotional vulnerability often remained difficult for him. He cared deeply for Jason, but sometimes failed, expressing that care clearly enough beneath the harsh structure of Batman's world. Jason needed reassurance more than Bruce realized. He needed approval. He needed emotional connection. He needed someone to convince him he was more than the anger burning inside him. Instead, Gotham kept feeding that anger constantly. And eventually, it led Jason directly toward the Joker. Among all Batman's enemies, Joker represented chaos in its purest emotional form. Someone who destroyed lives not for money or power, but simply because causing suffering entertained him psychologically. The Joker understood emotional pain instinctively, and he recognized Jason Todd's vulnerability immediately. The murder of Jason became one of the darkest moments in Batman's entire life, not only because Robin died, but because Bruce blamed himself completely for failing to protect him. Jason's final moments before death carried enormous emotional horror. Beaten brutally by Joker, abandoned inside the warehouse, and ultimately killed in the explosion afterward, Jason died believing Batman would not reach him in time, and Bruce did not. That failure shattered Batman emotionally in ways few events ever had before. Bruce Wayne spent years convincing himself he could save people through preparation, discipline, and relentless effort. Batman existed partly because Bruce could not save his parents as a child. Every mission afterward became an attempt to prevent others from suffering similar loss. Yet Jason died anyway. And worse, Jason died while fighting beside Batman because Bruce brought him into that dangerous world personally. The guilt consumed Bruce afterward. For a long time, Jason's death transformed Batman into something colder, harsher, and more emotionally isolated. Bruce blamed himself not only for failing to rescue Jason physically, but for failing him emotionally as a mentor and father figure too. He replayed every argument, every moment of tension, every warning sign he missed. Could he have trained Jason differently? Could he have listened better? Could he have loved him more openly, instead of hiding behind Batman's emotional distance? Those questions haunted Bruce constantly. The empty Robin costume inside the Batcave became more than a memorial. It became proof of failure staring back at Bruce every time he entered the cave beneath Wayne Manor. Jason's death reminded Batman that even the people closest to him could die because of the mission he created. And then came the cruelest twist of all. Jason returned, but not as the boy Bruce remembered. When Red Hood emerged in Gotham, the emotional devastation surrounding his return reached far beyond shock or confusion. Jason's resurrection should have felt miraculous. Bruce should have been overjoyed simply knowing the boy survived somehow after all those years. Instead, Jason returned carrying even deeper rage than before. Death changed him. Pain changed him. Abandonment changed him. And perhaps most importantly, Jason believed Batman betrayed him after his death by refusing to kill Joker permanently. That belief became the emotional center of their conflict. To Jason, Batman, choosing moral restraint over vengeance, felt unforgivable. Joker tortured and murdered him brutally, yet Bruce still allowed Joker to live afterward because Batman refused crossing the line into execution. Jason interpreted that choice personally. In his mind, Bruce valued abstract moral principles more than justice for the son he failed to save. That emotional wound transformed Jason into Red Hood, a figure operating with Batman's training and intelligence, but without Batman's moral limits. Jason targeted Gotham's criminals ruthlessly, using lethal force, intimidation, and brutality in ways designed to expose what he viewed as the weakness of Batman's endless restraint. And for Bruce, this became another unbearable failure. Jason's return should have healed old pain. Instead, it reopened every wound deeper than before. Batman now faced someone he loved who had become emotionally consumed by anger and violence, partly because of trauma. Bruce failed to stop originally. Red Hood represented resurrection twisted into accusation, living proof that saving someone physically does not necessarily save them emotionally afterward. Their confrontations carried enormous emotional complexity because neither man truly stopped caring about the other despite everything. Jason still wanted Bruce's approval somewhere beneath the rage. Bruce still viewed Jason as family despite the violence and betrayal. That was what made their conflict tragic rather than simple. Red Hood constantly forced Batman to confront uncomfortable truths about Gotham, justice, and his own moral code. Jason argued that Batman's refusal to permanently eliminate monsters like Joker allowed endless suffering to continue. Bruce resisted because crossing that line meant becoming something darker than the criminals he fought. Yet part of Batman always feared Jason might understand Gotham's brutality more honestly than he wanted to admit. That fear created emotional tension impossible to resolve completely. Jason Todd, therefore, became one of Batman's deepest heartbreaks because he represented both the child Bruce failed to save and the man Gotham transformed afterward. Every encounter between Batman and Red Hood carried echoes of the boy who once wore Robin's colors, searching desperately for belonging beneath the anger. And somewhere beneath all the violence, arguments, and emotional scars, Bruce Wayne still saw Jason as the son Gotham stole from him twice, once through death and once through resurrection. The League of Assassins and Talia al Ghul. Among all the relationships Batman formed throughout his long and painful war against the darkness surrounding Gotham City, few were as emotionally complicated, dangerous, and deeply personal as the one he shared with Talia al Ghul, because Talia existed in Bruce Wayne's life as both comfort and threat at the same time, someone capable of genuine affection and loyalty, while also carrying the influence, manipulation, and ruthless ideology of the League of Assassins deep within her identity. Loving Talia meant standing dangerously close to a world Batman spent his entire life fighting against. Yet, walking away from her completely was never emotionally simple, because beneath the deception and betrayal, something real still existed between them. That was what made everything surrounding Talia so painful. She was never merely an enemy pretending to care, and she was never fully trustworthy either. Bruce Wayne spent much of his life emotionally isolated beneath the weight of Batman's mission, keeping distance between himself and others, because Gotham had already taught him how dangerous emotional attachment could become. Every person Bruce cared about eventually faced danger, trauma, manipulation, or loss connected to his war against crime. Over time, Bruce learned to guard himself emotionally almost as carefully as he protected Gotham physically. But Talia bypassed many of those defenses, partly because she understood Bruce in ways few others ever truly could. Like her father, Ra's al Ghul, Talia recognized the loneliness inside Batman immediately. She understood his obsession, discipline, emotional wounds, and endless sense of responsibility. Yet unlike Ra's, whose admiration often felt cold and ideological, Talia approached Bruce with something softer and far more emotionally intimate. She saw Bruce Wayne beneath Batman. That mattered deeply because most people interacted with either Batman the symbol or Bruce Wayne the public mask, rarely understanding the exhausted, traumatized man trapped somewhere between those identities. Talia often seemed capable of reaching the parts of Bruce hidden beneath years of emotional armor and self-control. And for Bruce, that connection became dangerously comforting. Because Talia existed outside Gotham's ordinary world entirely, she moved through ancient hidden networks, secret organizations, international conflicts, and dangerous political shadows connected to the League of Assassins. Her life carried mystery, intelligence, elegance, and deadly skill all at once. She understood violence naturally because she was raised within it, yet she also carried moments of vulnerability and emotional honesty that made Bruce believe perhaps some part of her wanted freedom from her father's influence too. That hope kept drawing Batman back toward her repeatedly. Yet from the beginning, their relationship carried manipulation woven deeply into it. Talia loved Bruce in her own complicated way, but she also inherited the worldview of Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins, a worldview shaped by control, secrecy, loyalty, and ruthless sacrifice. She grew up inside an environment where emotional attachment often became another tool for power, rather than something pure or uncomplicated. That upbringing affected every interaction between them. Sometimes, Talia helped Batman genuinely, protecting him, sharing information, or standing beside him against greater threats. Other times, she manipulated situations behind the scenes, concealed dangerous truths, or pressured Bruce emotionally in ways reflecting her father's influence more than genuine partnership. Batman therefore never fully knew where loyalty ended and manipulation began with her. And perhaps Talia herself did not always know either, because she existed between two worlds constantly. One part of her loved Bruce Wayne sincerely enough to challenge her father at times, risk her own safety, and imagine another kind of life outside the endless violence surrounding the League of Assassins. But another part of her remained loyal to Ra's al Ghul, loyal to the League's vision, and loyal to the brutal methods shaping her entire identity since childhood. This internal conflict made Talia tragic in ways many of Batman's enemies were not. She was not driven by madness like the Joker or consumed entirely by vengeance and hatred. Instead, Talia constantly balanced affection against ideology, love against inherited loyalty, emotional truth against manipulation. And Bruce Wayne felt trapped inside that conflict beside her. Their relationship often resembled two people reaching toward one another across a deep emotional divide. Neither fully knew how to cross safely. Batman wanted to believe Talia could choose another path away from her father's world, while Talia often wanted Bruce to accept that his strict moral boundaries might never truly save Gotham or humanity from its endless violence. That disagreement poisoned everything eventually, because no matter how strong the attraction between them became, their visions of justice remained fundamentally incompatible. Batman believed innocent life mattered absolutely. Talia came from a world where sacrifice and death could become acceptable if they served larger goals. And behind all of this stood Ra's al Ghul, watching carefully. Ra's viewed Bruce not only as a worthy successor, but also as someone who could strengthen his bloodline and ideological legacy through Talia. This added another deeply unsettling layer to Batman's relationship with her, because emotional intimacy often became entangled with Ra's larger manipulations and plans for the future. Love never existed separately from strategy within the Al Ghul family. That reality made trust almost impossible. Bruce often found himself questioning whether Talia's actions came from genuine feeling or hidden agendas connected to the League of Assassins. Sometimes, she protected him from danger. Other times she concealed critical information until revealing it strategically later. Some moments between them felt honest and emotionally vulnerable. Others carried hidden motives beneath every word. This emotional uncertainty exhausted Batman deeply, because Bruce Wayne already struggled with trust after years of betrayal throughout Gotham. Talia intensified those fears by constantly existing between ally and betrayer, comfort and danger, sincerity and deception. And then came Damian Wayne. The revelation that Bruce had a son changed Batman emotionally in ways he never fully anticipated, because Damian forced Bruce to confront something he spent much of his life avoiding, namely, the idea of family beyond trauma and loss. Bruce Wayne understood being a son shaped by violence and grief. He understood mentorship through the Robins, but fatherhood carried a different emotional weight entirely, especially under these circumstances. Damian did not arrive as an ordinary child entering Bruce's life gradually. He arrived carrying the influence of the League of Assassins, raised within violence, trained from childhood to kill, and shaped by Talia and Ra's al Ghul's worldview long before Batman truly knew him. Damian represented both love and manipulation at the same time, the living result of Bruce's relationship with Talia intertwined with the League's dangerous ideology. For Bruce, this created enormous emotional confusion. Part of him felt genuine love and protectiveness toward Damian almost immediately, because the boy was his son, another child shaped by trauma and violence, much like Bruce himself once had been. But another part of Bruce felt anger and betrayal toward Talia because of how Damian's existence had been concealed, manipulated, and controlled for years. Batman realized once again that the Al Ghul family never separated emotional connection from strategy fully. Even parenthood became entangled with manipulation. Damian himself reflected this conflict painfully. He loved his mother, yet carried the emotional damage of being raised inside the League's brutal environment. He admired Batman, while also struggling against the moral limits Bruce tried teaching him. Damian inherited intelligence, discipline, and emotional intensity from both parents, creating a child constantly torn between compassion and violence. And Bruce blamed himself partly for that. Because Damian's existence forced Batman to confront the consequences of his connection to Talia in ways impossible to ignore anymore, their relationship no longer affected only themselves emotionally. Now a child stood in the center of that conflict, carrying the psychological scars of both worlds. This complicated Bruce's understanding of trust and family profoundly. Batman always feared emotional attachment because Gotham repeatedly turned love into vulnerability and loss. With Damian, those fears became even stronger because Bruce saw how easily children could inherit trauma, violence, and emotional confusion from the adults shaping their lives. Talia remained central to that pain. At times, she appeared genuinely devoted to Damian's well-being and Bruce's safety. At other times, she manipulated both of them for larger goals connected to the League or her father's legacy. Batman could never fully predict which version of Talia he would encounter, the caring woman reaching toward connection or the strategist willing to sacrifice trust for control. And perhaps the cruelest part was that both versions were real. Talia truly loved Bruce in her own way. She truly cared for Damian too, yet she also remained capable of deception, emotional manipulation, and betrayal whenever loyalty to her family or ideology demanded it. That contradiction destroyed any possibility of simple happiness between them. Bruce Wayne often imagined what life might have looked like if Talia had grown up free from the League's influence, free from Ra's al Ghul's control and worldview. Perhaps under different circumstances, they could have built something honest together. Perhaps Damian could have known a peaceful childhood untouched by violence and manipulation. But Gotham and the League of Assassins rarely allowed peaceful futures. Instead, Batman remained trapped, loving someone he could never fully trust. While raising a son shaped partly by the very darkness Bruce spent his entire life fighting against. And somewhere between affection and betrayal, Bruce Wayne learned another painful truth about himself. Even after everything Gotham had already taken from him, part of him still longed for connection deeply enough to risk heartbreak again whenever Talia al Ghul stepped back into his life from the shadows. Hush, the friend who became an enemy. Long before Batman learned to fear secret organizations, criminal masterminds, or masked killers hiding within the shadows of Gotham City, Bruce Wayne once believed childhood friendship represented one of the few safe places untouched by the city's corruption and emotional cruelty. As a boy growing up surrounded by enormous wealth, strict expectations, and the loneliness of living inside Wayne Manor, Bruce often struggled forming normal connections with other children. Most people treated him differently because of the Wayne family name, either admiring him from a distance or envying the privilege surrounding his life, without truly understanding the emotional emptiness hidden beneath it. And among the few people who seemed to understand Bruce during those early years was Thomas Elliot. At first, Tommy Elliot appeared almost like Bruce's reflection. Both boys came from wealthy Gotham families, connected through status, education, and elite social circles. Both grew up surrounded by expectations linked to family legacy. Both possessed intelligence far beyond many children their age. From the outside, their friendship looked natural. Two privileged boys navigating Gotham's upper-class world together, while the city's darker realities remained somewhere far beyond the walls of expensive homes and private schools. Yet beneath the surface, their childhoods could not have been more emotionally different. Bruce Wayne, despite losing his parents tragically later, spent his early childhood surrounded by genuine love and emotional warmth. Thomas and Martha Wayne cared deeply for their son. They encouraged compassion, kindness, and moral responsibility. Bruce grew up feeling emotionally valued, even while carrying the isolation that often comes with wealth and public attention. Tommy Elliot experienced something else entirely. Different versions of his story reveal emotionally abusive, controlling, or deeply unhealthy relationships with his parents, especially his mother. While Bruce received affection and guidance, Tommy often felt trapped inside a household shaped by manipulation, resentment, pressure, and emotional coldness. Over time, he began viewing family not as a source of comfort, but as something controlling his freedom and happiness. That difference changed everything, because children compare their lives constantly, even when adults fail noticing it. Tommy looked at Bruce Wayne and saw something he desperately wanted for himself: not only wealth, but love, admiration, emotional security, and freedom from the suffocating resentment consuming his own household. The Wayne family represented a version of life Tommy believed should have belonged to him instead. At first, that envy remained hidden quietly beneath friendship, but Gotham has a way of turning hidden emotions darker over time. Tommy Elliot became obsessed with control very early in life, because control represented escape from the emotional power his parents held over him. Some versions of his story even describe him deliberately causing the car accident meant to kill his parents so he could inherit their fortune and freedom immediately. When his mother survived, resentment deepened inside him even further, transforming frustration into hatred buried carefully beneath outward success and intelligence. And then Bruce Wayne's parents died. To most people, the murders of Thomas and Martha Wayne looked like unspeakable tragedy, destroying a young boy's life forever. But Tommy Elliot viewed those events through the distorted lens of envy and emotional damage already growing inside him. Bruce inherited enormous wealth and public sympathy after losing his parents. Gotham admired him even more deeply afterward. People surrounded Bruce with concern, attention, and emotional support. Tommy saw all of that and felt something poisonous growing stronger inside himself. Because in his mind, Bruce Wayne received freedom and sympathy through tragedy, while Tommy remained emotionally trapped despite wanting escape for years. That emotional distortion became one of the darkest parts of Thomas Elliot's psychology. Instead of feeling compassion for his friend, he grew increasingly jealous of him, jealous of Bruce's inheritance, jealous of his emotional connection to his parents before their deaths, jealous of Gotham's admiration, jealous of the purpose Bruce eventually found through Batman. Tommy's envy slowly transformed into obsession because Bruce Wayne became symbolic of everything he believed life unfairly denied him. And unlike many of Batman's enemies, motivated by chaos, greed, or ideology, Hush emerged from something deeply personal: resentment. The kind built slowly over years through comparison, emotional isolation, and hidden bitterness, left untreated until it consumed nearly every part of someone's identity. As adults, Bruce and Tommy appeared successful in similar ways outwardly. Tommy became an accomplished surgeon, respected professionally for his intelligence and medical skill. Bruce inherited Wayne Enterprises while secretly becoming Batman. Publicly, both men seemed to embody Gotham's wealthy elite at the height of power and influence. Yet Tommy's hatred continued growing privately. Because, no matter how successful he became, Bruce Wayne remained emotionally impossible for him to escape. Every achievement Bruce reached reminded Tommy of his own dissatisfaction. Every public appearance reinforced the feeling that Gotham loved Bruce more. Every tragedy Bruce survived somehow deepened Tommy's obsession further, because Bruce always seemed capable of transforming pain into meaning, while Tommy remained trapped inside bitterness. Eventually, Thomas Elliot stopped wanting merely to surpass Bruce Wayne. He wanted to destroy him emotionally. That transformation into Hush became terrifying, precisely because of how intimately Tommy understood Bruce's life. Unlike ordinary villains investigating Batman from the outside, Hush carried years of personal history connected directly to Bruce Wayne's childhood, habits, relationships, and emotional vulnerabilities. He knew Bruce before Batman existed. That made the betrayal feel devastatingly personal. Hush did not simply attack Batman physically. He attacked Bruce Wayne's memories, relationships, identity, and emotional foundations carefully, almost like someone dismantling a life piece by piece out of hatred built over decades. He manipulated people close to Bruce, orchestrated elaborate psychological games, and exploited private knowledge only an old friend could possess. For Batman, this became horrifying because it violated something deeply sacred emotionally. Bruce Wayne spent most of his life isolated after his parents' deaths, rarely allowing people close enough to truly know him. Childhood friendships, therefore, carried enormous emotional weight because they connected to the brief period before Gotham fully transformed his life through trauma and loss. Thomas Elliot belonged to that lost world, and now that world had returned twisted into something monstrous. The emotional betrayal wounded Bruce deeply because part of him genuinely remembered Tommy as a friend once. He remembered shared experiences, conversations, childhood moments, and the fragile trust children build before learning how cruel adults and cities can become. Discovering that resentment had secretly existed beneath those memories all along forced Bruce to question whether the friendship was ever real at all. That uncertainty hurt almost as much as the attacks themselves, because betrayal becomes more painful when it rewrites the past emotionally. Hush forced Bruce Wayne to look backward at his own childhood through suspicion and doubt, wondering how much jealousy Tommy hid, even during their earliest years together. Were the smiles genuine? Were the moments of friendship real? Or had resentment always existed quietly beneath everything? This psychological damage reflected Gotham perfectly. The city constantly corrupted relationships by allowing envy, bitterness, trauma, and emotional isolation to grow unchecked over time. Tommy Elliot represented another version of what Gotham created repeatedly, namely someone unable to process pain or jealousy in healthy ways until those emotions transformed into obsession and destruction. And Bruce Wayne's wealth became central to that tragedy. Because Bruce often failed understanding how other people viewed his privilege emotionally, while Bruce experienced wealth alongside grief, loneliness, and trauma, outsiders frequently saw only the enormous fortune, public admiration, and social influence surrounding the Wayne name. Tommy especially interpreted Bruce's life through envy distorted by his own emotional suffering. He convinced himself Bruce possessed everything: freedom, love, purpose, power, respect. Meanwhile, Tommy viewed his own life as controlled, denied, and emotionally suffocating despite his own wealth and privilege. This comparison poisoned his mind slowly until Bruce Wayne himself became the target, rather than the emotional wounds Tommy truly needed to confront within himself. That made Hush tragic in a deeply human way. Unlike supernatural monsters or theatrical criminals, Thomas Elliot reflected emotions ordinary people understand too well. Jealousy towards someone seemingly happier, resentment toward unfairness, obsession with comparison, and bitterness allowed to grow too long without healing. Gotham simply amplified those emotions until they became lethal. For Batman, the conflict with Hush reinforced another painful truth about trust. Sometimes, betrayal does not come from enemies entering your life suddenly. Sometimes it comes from people who stood beside you for years, quietly hiding resentment strong enough to destroy everything once the mask finally falls away. And perhaps what disturbed Bruce Wayne most was realizing how easily Gotham transformed childhood friendship into hatred over time. The city poisoned relationships slowly through trauma, comparison, emotional neglect, and hidden bitterness, until even old memories no longer felt safe anymore. Because in Gotham, even the people who knew you before the mask could eventually become strangers hiding behind one of their own. The Court of Owls and Gotham's hidden lies. For most of his life, Batman believed he understood Gotham City better than anyone else alive, because Bruce Wayne had spent years studying every layer of the city with obsessive focus, memorizing its streets, investigating its criminals, uncovering political corruption, mapping underground tunnels, and learning how fear moved through Gotham like weather drifting between buildings after midnight. Batman built his entire mission around the belief that if he understood Gotham deeply enough, he could eventually protect it from the darkness consuming it. And then the Court of Owls shattered that belief completely. No enemy before them had wounded Batman quite this way emotionally, because the court did not simply attack his body, his allies, or his mission. They attacked his understanding of Gotham itself. They forced Bruce Wayne to confront the horrifying possibility that despite dedicating his entire life to the city, despite all his intelligence and preparation, he never truly knew Gotham at all. That realization cut deeper than almost any physical injury ever could. At first, the Court of Owls seemed like another urban legend buried inside Gotham's long history of myths and whispered stories. Gotham already carried endless rumors about hidden tunnels, haunted buildings, forgotten crimes, and secret organizations operating beneath the city. Most citizens treated such stories like ghost tales told during storms or repeated quietly between generations without serious proof behind them. Even Bruce Wayne dismissed the court for many years. That fact mattered deeply because Bruce prided himself on uncovering truth beneath Gotham's fear and confusion. He trusted evidence, investigation, and careful observation. If the court truly existed, Batman believed he would have discovered them already through years of detective work. Instead, the court discovered him first. That reversal changed everything psychologically. Because the moment Bruce realized the court had operated within Gotham for centuries without detection, his confidence in his own understanding of the city began collapsing piece by piece. Hidden symbols appeared inside ancient architecture. Secret chambers existed beneath buildings Bruce thought he knew completely. Murders connected to wealthy families revealed patterns stretching across generations. Historical records vanished or contradicted one another mysteriously whenever investigations approached certain truths too closely. Gotham suddenly felt unfamiliar to Batman. The city he believed he understood better than anyone else now resembled a maze, hiding entire layers beneath the surface. Layers controlled by unseen figures who had shaped Gotham long before Bruce Wayne was ever born. And perhaps the cruelest part was how personal this betrayal became. Bruce Wayne came from one of Gotham's oldest and wealthiest families. The Wayne family helped build enormous parts of the city through philanthropy, business, medicine, and public institutions. Wayne Manor itself stood as one of Gotham's oldest landmarks, carrying generations of history tied directly to the city's development. Bruce believed his family history connected him deeply to Gotham. The court forced him to realize there were histories older and darker than anything he inherited. That realization created enormous emotional instability because Batman's identity depended heavily on his relationship with Gotham. Bruce Wayne endured endless suffering to protect the city because he believed Gotham mattered, because he believed he understood its pain, corruption, and hidden systems deeply enough to fight against them effectively. But the court suggested something terrifying. What if Gotham itself had been lying to him all along? The Court of Owls represented far more than a secret organization hiding beneath the city. They represented hidden history itself, proof that Gotham's visible institutions and public narratives concealed much older structures of power operating quietly across centuries. According to the court's mythology, Gotham never truly belonged to its elected leaders, police departments, or public institutions. It belonged to the families and hidden elites controlling the city from darkness generation after generation. Politicians came and went. Criminal empires rose and collapsed. Public scandals erupted before fading away. Yet beneath all those visible changes, the court remained patient, watching Gotham evolve while quietly guiding its direction from the shadows. This transformed Batman's understanding of Gotham completely. Bruce once viewed corruption as something infecting the city over time through greed, crime, and institutional weakness. The court introduced a darker possibility, namely that Gotham's corruption might actually be part of its foundation from the beginning, not accidental, intentional. That idea haunted Bruce deeply because it meant Gotham's suffering may never have been random chaos alone. Instead, hidden powers might have shaped the city deliberately through fear, manipulation, economic inequality, political control, and violence designed to preserve elite authority across generations. The court operated almost like invisible royalty beneath Gotham. They manipulated financial systems quietly, influenced political structures, controlled historical narratives, eliminated threats through assassins known as talons. Entire generations of Gotham's elite may have cooperated with them, knowingly or unknowingly, while ordinary citizens remained completely unaware, and Batman, despite all his intelligence, missed them entirely for years. That humiliation wounded Bruce emotionally because Batman survived through certainty in his investigative abilities. He trusted his understanding of Gotham more than almost anything else. The court exposed terrifying blind spots within that confidence. They knew the city better than he did. That truth became almost unbearable for Bruce Wayne. The court repeatedly emphasized this psychological advantage during their conflict with Batman. They described him as an outsider despite his family history. They mocked his belief that he understood Gotham's soul. They treated Batman almost like a child, wandering through systems far older and more powerful than he ever realized. And slowly, Bruce began fearing they might be right. The city itself started feeling alive in strange ways during his investigations, almost as though Gotham protected the court naturally through its architecture, hidden tunnels, ancient buildings, and fragmented history. Secret passages stretched beneath streets. Bruce traveled nightly for years without noticing. Historical landmarks concealed chambers invisible from ordinary observation. Even nursery rhymes whispered by Gotham children suddenly carried hidden meanings connected to the court's existence. Every discovery weakened Batman's emotional certainty further, because Gotham no longer resembled a wounded city waiting to be healed. It resembled something built intentionally to hide truth. That distinction terrified Bruce Wayne more than many villains ever had. The court also forced Batman to confront uncomfortable truths about Gotham's wealthy elite, including families Bruce once viewed primarily as pillars of civilization and influence. The organization's existence suggested that Gotham's upper class may have participated in hidden systems of manipulation and violence for generations, while presenting respectable public images outwardly. Bruce could not escape the painful question lingering beneath everything. How much did the Waynes know? Even if Thomas and Martha Wayne opposed corruption genuinely, could earlier generations of the family have been connected somehow to Gotham's hidden structures? Had Bruce inherited wealth shaped partly by systems he never fully understood? The court poisoned Bruce's relationship with his own history. That emotional betrayal mattered enormously, because Bruce Wayne already carried complicated feelings about privilege, inheritance, and responsibility after becoming Batman. He spent years trying to use Wayne wealth for good, while fighting Gotham's corruption from the shadows simultaneously. The court blurred those moral boundaries dangerously. Suddenly, Bruce's family history no longer felt safe or morally clear. Everything connected to Gotham seemed infected by hidden manipulation somewhere beneath the surface. And then came the labyrinth. The court trapping Batman inside their underground maze became more than physical torture. It represented psychological destruction aimed directly at Bruce Wayne's identity. Inside the labyrinth, Gotham itself turned against him through endless corridors, distorted spaces, exhaustion, hallucinations, and emotional breakdown. For perhaps the first time in his life, Batman lost confidence in his own mind completely. The court wanted Bruce to understand something horrifying. Gotham belonged to them more than it ever belonged to him. The city's hidden rulers used architecture, history, secrecy, and fear itself as weapons against anyone challenging their control. Batman spent years believing he hunted Gotham's darkness from above through rooftops and investigations. Yet the court operated beneath him the entire time, invisible and patient. That realization changed Bruce permanently. After the court, Batman no longer viewed Gotham as a city he could fully know or master. The city became stranger, older, and more psychologically threatening than before. Every hidden passage, historical inconsistency, wealthy social gathering, and abandoned building carried new uncertainty, because Gotham itself had deceived him. Not through one lie alone, but through centuries of hidden truth buried carefully beneath public history, until even Batman failed recognizing it. And perhaps that became the court's greatest betrayal. Not simply manipulating Gotham from the shadows, but forcing Bruce Wayne to understand that the city he loved, protected, studied, and sacrificed everything for, had always contained enormous secrets hidden beyond his reach. The court proved Gotham could never be understood completely. There would always be another layer beneath the surface, another hidden room, another forgotten tunnel, another lie buried beneath history. And somewhere within Gotham's endless darkness, the Court of Owls remained waiting patiently, like ghosts inhabiting the city's oldest bones, watching Batman struggle with the terrifying possibility that Gotham was never truly his to save in the first place. Superman and the fear of absolute power. When Batman first encountered Superman, the meeting felt almost impossible from Bruce Wayne's perspective, because Gotham had taught Batman to see the world through fear, corruption, betrayal, and hidden weakness, while Superman appeared to stand for something entirely different, something almost unreal in comparison. Where Gotham's skyline disappeared beneath endless storms and shadows, Superman seemed to arrive carrying sunlight with him. Where Batman inspired fear in criminals through darkness and intimidation, Superman inspired hope simply by existing. And perhaps most unsettling of all for Bruce Wayne, Superman possessed more power than any human being should ever be trusted to hold. That fear shaped everything between them from the beginning. To ordinary people, Superman looked like a miracle, a figure capable of saving entire cities, stopping disasters, lifting impossible weight, and surviving dangers that would kill anyone else instantly. Citizens admired him because he represented safety in a world filled with fear. Children looked toward the sky, believing Superman would always arrive when needed. Entire governments struggled understanding how to react to someone so powerful, yet seemingly so compassionate. But Batman viewed Superman differently. Bruce Wayne had spent his entire life watching power become corrupted eventually. Politicians abused authority, wealthy elites manipulated systems, criminal organizations ruled through fear, secret groups controlled Gotham from the shadows. Again and again, Bruce witnessed how easily human beings twisted power toward control, violence, and selfishness, once nobody could truly stop them anymore. Now imagine someone capable of leveling cities with his bare hands, someone faster than bullets, someone nearly impossible to imprison, someone who could hear conversations across enormous distances and see through walls. To Batman, Superman represented the most dangerous possibility imaginable, namely, absolute power combined with no guaranteed method of control if things ever went wrong. This did not mean Bruce hated Superman immediately. In fact, part of what complicated their relationship emotionally was that Batman genuinely recognized Superman's goodness. Clark Kent was kind in ways Gotham rarely allowed people to remain for long. He cared about ordinary lives deeply. He believed in helping people, not because of trauma or obsession, but because compassion came naturally to him. Superman represented moral hope in its purest form, and that purity frightened Batman even more. Because Bruce Wayne understood how fragile goodness could become beneath enough pressure, grief, manipulation, or emotional pain, Gotham had already shown him countless examples of good people breaking apart psychologically over time. Harvey Dent once represented hope too, before becoming Two-Face. Jason Todd once fought beside Batman before rage transformed him into Red Hood. Even Bruce himself constantly feared the darkness growing inside him after years of violence and emotional isolation. So Batman kept asking himself the same terrifying question. What would happen if Superman ever broke too? Unlike Gotham's ordinary criminals, Superman possessed the ability to reshape the entire world through force if he chose to. That possibility haunted Bruce Wayne constantly, even during moments of friendship and alliance between them. And yet, despite all this fear, Batman and Superman repeatedly found themselves standing beside one another against threats too large for either hero to face alone. That was where the emotional conflict deepened. Because Bruce Wayne respected Clark Kent genuinely over time, he admired Superman's courage, selflessness, and refusal to abuse his immense abilities despite endless opportunities to do so. Clark trusted humanity despite all its flaws in ways Batman often struggled understanding emotionally. Superman believed people deserved hope. Batman believed people needed protection from darkness. Together, they formed an uneasy balance between optimism and paranoia, but that balance never fully erased the tension between them. Batman always prepared for the possibility that Superman might someday become dangerous. That fact created one of the most emotionally uncomfortable aspects of their relationship, because Bruce Wayne treated even his closest allies with caution if they possessed enough power to threaten innocent lives on a massive scale. Superman understood this eventually. He realized Batman studied him constantly, analyzing weaknesses, contingency plans, and methods capable of stopping him if necessary. To Clark Kent, this felt painful at times, because Superman genuinely wanted friendship. He trusted Batman more than many other heroes, precisely because Bruce challenged him honestly rather than worshipping him blindly. Clark respected Batman's intelligence, discipline, and relentless commitment to protecting people, despite lacking superhuman abilities. He admired Bruce's refusal to surrender, even while fighting enemies vastly stronger than himself. Yet Superman also understood something sad beneath Batman's caution. Bruce Wayne struggled trusting anyone completely, especially someone powerful enough to destroy the world, accidentally or intentionally. This ideological divide created repeated conflict between them across many storylines, because Batman and Superman represented fundamentally different emotional responses to humanity itself. Superman believed humanity, despite flaws and violence, remained worth trusting and inspiring towards something better. He saw potential for goodness, even during terrible moments. Clark believed hope could guide people toward compassion and unity if given enough support and protection. Batman believed humanity required accountability, preparation, and vigilance because fear, corruption, and weakness constantly threatened to destroy innocent lives. Bruce trusted systems less. He trusted emotions less. He trusted power least of all. Neither man was completely wrong. That was what made their relationship so fascinating and painful simultaneously. Batman's fear sometimes pushed him too far emotionally. Certain storylines reveal Bruce secretly creating plans capable of neutralizing fellow heroes if they ever became dangerous, especially Superman. These contingency plans demonstrated Batman's obsession with preparation, but they also revealed how deeply fear controlled him psychologically. Bruce could not tolerate absolute vulnerability, even among allies. When Superman discovered such plans, the emotional damage between them became severe, because friendship cannot fully survive without trust. Clark viewed Batman's preparations as betrayal, proof that Bruce never truly believed in him completely, despite years fighting beside one another. Superman understood caution intellectually, yet emotionally it still hurt, knowing Batman constantly prepared for the possibility of his downfall. Bruce, meanwhile, viewed such preparation as responsibility rather than betrayal. From Batman's perspective, failing to prepare for dangerous possibilities would itself become morally irresponsible given Superman's immense power. Bruce trusted Clark as much as he believed possible, but he trusted no one, absolutely. Not governments, not institutions, not himself, and certainly not someone with godlike abilities. This difference repeatedly pushed them toward confrontation. Sometimes, ideological disagreements escalated into physical conflict when their visions of justice collided too sharply. Superman occasionally believed Batman's methods became too brutal, too fear-driven, or too detached emotionally. Batman sometimes viewed Superman as dangerously naive about human corruption and political manipulation. Each man represented what the other feared becoming. Batman feared losing control, like Superman potentially could. Superman feared losing compassion and hope, the way Batman sometimes seemed to. And because they understood one another so deeply, their conflicts always carried emotional intensity beyond ordinary disagreement. Bruce Wayne also feared something else hidden beneath all this: dependence. Because Superman's existence tempted the world into relying too heavily on extraordinary power rather than fixing its deeper problems. Gotham taught Batman that systems become weaker when people surrender responsibility to singular, powerful figures. If Superman solved every crisis alone, humanity might eventually stop believing ordinary people mattered at all. Clark Kent disagreed strongly with this perspective. Superman wanted to inspire humanity, not replace it. He believed hope encouraged people toward greatness rather than dependency. Yet Batman remained cautious, because history repeatedly showed him how easily societies surrender freedom or responsibility in exchange for safety. This fear became especially strong during darker storylines where Superman fell under manipulation, mind control, grief, or authoritarian influence temporarily. Whenever Clark lost emotional balance or moral clarity even briefly, Batman's deepest fears suddenly felt justified. And Bruce hated that feeling, because despite all his suspicion, part of him genuinely wanted Superman to remain exactly what he appeared to be, proof that enormous power could exist alongside compassion without corruption, eventually destroying it. Batman needed Superman emotionally almost as much as he feared him. That contradiction defined their relationship. Clark represented the possibility that trauma and power did not always have to create darkness. Superman carried hope. Batman often struggled feeling himself after years inside Gotham's endless violence. When Bruce looked at Clark, he saw what humanity could become at its best. But Gotham never allowed Bruce Wayne to trust such hope completely. Fear always remained waiting beneath the surface. What if Superman changed? What if grief broke him? What if humanity turned against him? What if absolute power eventually corrupted even someone as good as Clark Kent? Batman carried those questions constantly because Gotham taught him disasters begin the moment people stop preparing for worst possibilities. And still, despite every argument, every confrontation, and every moment of suspicion between them, Batman and Superman repeatedly returned to one another as allies, because somewhere beneath the ideological conflict existed genuine respect and friendship, impossible to erase completely. Bruce trusted Clark more than almost anyone else alive. Clark understood Bruce more deeply than most people ever could. Yet their bond remained fragile precisely because it balanced constantly between hope and paranoia. Superman believed the world could still become better through compassion and inspiration. Batman believed the world survived only because someone remained prepared for darkness at all times. Together they formed one of the most emotionally complicated relationships in the DC universe, not because they hated each other, but because they represented two opposing truths humanity struggles with endlessly: the desire to believe in goodness, and the fear that goodness may not survive forever once power becomes limitless enough to challenge it. Bane breaking the bat. Before Bane arrived in Gotham City, most enemies feared Batman eventually, because even the city's most violent criminals understood that Batman represented something relentless, a figure capable of surviving pain, exhaustion, fear, and psychological pressure far beyond ordinary human limits. Criminal organizations collapsed beneath his investigations. Assassins failed to stop him. Corrupt officials learned to fear the shadows themselves after sunset. Over time, Gotham began treating Batman almost like an unstoppable force, rather than a man. Bane studied that belief carefully, and then he decided to destroy it completely. What made Bane different from many of Batman's enemies was not simply his physical strength, though that strength alone terrified Gotham once he finally emerged publicly. What truly separated Bane from others was patience and understanding. He did not rush toward confrontation driven by emotion, revenge, or theatrical obsession. Instead, he approached Batman almost like a strategist, studying a machine, carefully observing weaknesses, habits, routines, and psychological patterns before attacking. Bane understood something many villains never fully realized. Batman's greatest strength came from endurance. Bruce Wayne survived impossible situations because he refused to stop moving forward no matter how exhausted, wounded, or emotionally damaged he became. Batman won battles not always through superior strength, but through preparation, discipline, fearlessness, and relentless persistence. So Bane created a plan designed specifically to break that endurance. Not immediately, gradually, painfully, psychologically. Before even confronting Batman directly, Bane manipulated Gotham itself into becoming a weapon against him. He studied Arkham Asylum, Gotham's criminal networks, Batman's patrol patterns, and the city's emotional pressure points with cold precision. Unlike villains seeking chaos for entertainment, Bane wanted controlled exhaustion. He wanted Batman weakened physically, emotionally, and mentally before the final confrontation ever arrived. And then he unleashed Gotham's nightmare all at once. By orchestrating the mass breakout from Arkham Asylum, Bane flooded Gotham with violence, fear, and criminal chaos simultaneously. Dangerous criminals escaped into the streets together, overwhelming Batman night after night with endless emergencies. Fires erupted, murders increased, organized crime surged again. Gotham spiraled toward collapse beneath non-stop violence, while Batman desperately tried containing the city's breakdown alone. This was exactly what Bane wanted, because Bane understood Batman psychologically better than almost anyone before him. Bruce Wayne could not ignore suffering. He could not rest while Gotham burned. He could not abandon innocent people, even when exhaustion began destroying his body slowly. So Batman pushed himself harder and harder every night, moving from one disaster to another, without recovery, without sleep, and without enough time to heal physically between confrontations. Criminal after criminal forced Batman deeper into fatigue, while Gotham consumed his strength piece by piece. And somewhere in the darkness, Bane watched patiently. That patience made him terrifying. He did not need immediate victory, because he knew exhaustion itself would eventually weaken Batman more effectively than brute force alone. Bane transformed Gotham into an emotional trap specifically designed for Bruce Wayne, a city so overwhelmed with suffering that Batman would destroy himself trying to save it all. For days, Bruce kept fighting, bruised, bleeding, sleep-deprived, emotionally strained, still moving through Gotham's endless chaos because Batman genuinely believed stopping meant failure. But Bane already understood what Bruce refused to admit to himself. Batman was still human, and humans break eventually. This truth became central to everything surrounding Bane's eventual confrontation with Batman, because unlike enemies who treated Batman like an unstoppable myth, Bane focused obsessively on proving Batman's humanity through pain and physical destruction. When the final confrontation finally came inside Wayne Manor and the Batcave beneath it, Bruce Wayne was already exhausted beyond normal human limits. He had spent endless nights battling escaped criminals, stabilizing Gotham, and pushing his body through unbearable strain while carrying the emotional pressure of the city's collapse on his shoulders. Bane arrived fresh, calm, prepared, and completely unafraid. That alone unsettled Batman deeply, because fear usually gave him an advantage psychologically against criminals. Bane possessed none. Instead, he approached Batman with almost scientific certainty, fully convinced he already understood how the battle would end before it even began. The fight itself became legendary not simply because Batman lost, but because of how thoroughly Bane dismantled him physically and emotionally at the same time. Bane matched Batman intellectually, matched him strategically, and finally overwhelmed him physically. When Bane broke Batman's back, lifting Bruce above him before shattering his body across his knee, the moment carried enormous symbolic power far beyond violence alone. Gotham watched its greatest protector collapse publicly beneath someone stronger, smarter, and more relentless than anyone expected. The bat had been broken, and Bruce Wayne felt something even worse than physical agony in that moment. Helplessness. The same helplessness he experienced as a child watching his parents die. The same helplessness he spent his entire life trying to overcome through Batman. Bane stripped all of that away brutally. For perhaps the first time since becoming Batman, Bruce Wayne confronted undeniable proof that determination alone could fail completely. No amount of preparation, training, or emotional endurance prevented Bane from destroying him physically. That realization shattered Bruce psychologically. Because Batman's identity depended heavily on control, Bruce survived trauma by mastering fear, pain, and weakness through endless discipline. He built Batman specifically to become stronger than the frightened child left alone in Crime Alley years earlier. Bane exposed the limits of that transformation mercilessly. Underneath the armor, training, and legend, Bruce Wayne remained a vulnerable human being whose body could break like anyone else's. That truth terrified Gotham too. Citizens viewed Batman almost like an immortal guardian watching over the city's darkness from above. Seeing him defeated so completely damaged Gotham's emotional stability, because if Batman could fall, then perhaps no one truly stood capable of protecting the city anymore. Bane understood this symbolism perfectly. Breaking Batman publicly mattered as much psychologically as physically because Gotham's fear-based balance depended partly on criminals believing Batman remained unstoppable. By destroying that illusion, Bane reshaped Gotham emotionally overnight. Criminals grew bolder, hope weakened, fear changed direction, and Bruce Wayne, trapped inside physical recovery and emotional devastation afterward, struggled confronting what the defeat truly meant about himself. For a long time, Batman measured worth through endurance. He believed surviving pain proved strength. He believed relentless effort could overcome nearly anything eventually. Bane shattered those beliefs by exposing how exhaustion, obsession, and emotional rigidity created weaknesses Bruce never fully acknowledged before. Batman had limits, and Bane found them. That discovery forced Bruce into one of the darkest periods of his life, because physical recovery alone was not enough. Bruce needed to confront the emotional truth beneath the defeat too, namely that Batman's mission could not survive through self-destruction forever. Bane also revealed something tragic about Gotham itself. The city depended too heavily on Batman carrying impossible burdens alone. Bruce Wayne pushed himself beyond human limits because Gotham constantly demanded more from him than one person could realistically sustain. Every night brought new crises, new violence, new corruption, new suffering. Batman responded by sacrificing sleep, health, relationships, and emotional balance continuously because he feared what might happen if he ever slowed down. Bane weaponized that fear brilliantly. He turned Batman's greatest strength, his refusal to stop fighting, into the exact weakness, destroying him. And perhaps that was why Bane's victory remained so emotionally devastating even years later. Because unlike enemies who manipulated Batman through trickery or emotional betrayal, Bane defeated him through truth. Batman was human. Batman could become exhausted. Batman could fail. Batman could break. Bruce Wayne hated those truths because they threatened the myth he built around himself after childhood trauma, destroyed his sense of safety forever. Batman existed partly to escape weakness, grief, and helplessness through relentless strength and control. Bane dragged Bruce back toward vulnerability brutally. Yet strangely, this defeat also changed Batman permanently in important ways. Because after surviving Bane's attack and eventually returning, Bruce Wayne understood himself differently. He became more aware of his physical and emotional limits. He recognized the dangers of isolation and obsessive self-sacrifice more clearly. He learned Batman could not function purely as an endless machine fueled by pain and determination forever. The experience humbled him deeply. Still, the emotional scars remained. Whenever Bruce thought about Bane afterward, he remembered not only physical pain, but the terrifying feeling of watching his identity collapse beneath someone who understood him too well. Bane succeeded where many others failed because he did not simply fight Batman. He dismantled the illusions surrounding him piece by piece until only Bruce Wayne remained underneath, bruised, broken, human, and standing helplessly before the terrifying realization that Gotham's greatest protector had limits after all. The Joker's endless psychological war. Among all the enemies Batman ever faced throughout his endless war against the darkness surrounding Gotham City, none poisoned his mind, relationships, and emotional stability more deeply than the Joker, because Joker was never truly interested in ordinary victory. He did not seek Gotham's money, political control, or even survival in the traditional sense. Instead, Joker focused obsessively on something far more personal and terrifying, namely proving that Batman's morality, sanity, and emotional control could eventually collapse beneath enough pain. That was why Joker remained so dangerous. Most criminals attacked Batman physically. Joker attacked his soul. From the beginning, Joker understood something many others missed completely. Batman's greatest strength did not come from intelligence, combat skill, or fear alone. His true strength came from emotional discipline, the fragile line Bruce Wayne forced himself to maintain every single day between justice and rage, compassion and violence, order and psychological collapse. Joker wanted to erase that line forever. And unlike many villains who underestimated Batman emotionally, Joker studied him with disturbing precision. He watched how Bruce reacted to trauma, guilt, and loss. He learned which people mattered most to him. He observed how Batman carried responsibility like a burden impossible to set down, even for a moment. Over time, Joker began shaping crimes not merely to hurt Gotham, but to attack Batman's emotional structure directly. Every encounter became psychological warfare. The Joker rarely committed violence randomly, despite how chaotic he appeared outwardly. Behind the laughter, theatrical cruelty, and unpredictable behavior existed a frightening level of emotional understanding. Joker recognized that physical pain heals eventually. Broken bones recover, bruises fade, but emotional trauma remains alive inside people long after the blood disappears. So Joker focused on creating scars no medicine could repair. He targeted Batman's morality constantly because he believed morality itself was fragile, artificial, and temporary. Joker viewed civilization as a performance people maintained only until fear, grief, or desperation became strong enough to tear the mask away. In his mind, every human being stood one terrible day away from becoming like him. And Batman became his greatest obsession because Bruce Wayne resisted that transformation more stubbornly than anyone else. Joker could not tolerate that resistance emotionally, because if Batman truly remained incorruptible despite endless suffering, then Joker's entire worldview might be wrong. So again and again, Joker engineered horrifying situations specifically designed to force Batman toward emotional collapse. Sometimes through impossible moral choices, sometimes through manipulated allies, sometimes through pure psychological torture. The murder of Jason Todd represented one of Joker's cruelest attacks because it targeted Batman's deepest emotional vulnerabilities simultaneously. Joker did not simply kill Robin. He destroyed someone Bruce Wayne loved like family, then forced Batman to live with the guilt afterward forever. Jason's death poisoned Bruce emotionally because it convinced him his mission could destroy the people closest to him. Joker understood that pain would last longer than physical injury ever could, and he repeated this strategy constantly. He manipulated Harley Quinn emotionally until loyalty transformed into abuse and dependency. He tortured Commissioner Gordon psychologically through attacks against his family. He turned Gotham's citizens into unwilling participants in horrifying games meant to expose fear and selfishness beneath civilization's surface. Every crime became theater designed to attack trust, morality, and emotional stability rather than simple physical safety alone. Batman eventually realized something deeply unsettling about Joker. Joker seemed to understand him far too well. Not just Batman the symbol, but Bruce Wayne the man hidden beneath the mask. That possibility terrified Bruce emotionally because Joker often targeted weaknesses, even trusted allies, failed recognizing completely. He knew how guilt controlled Batman. He knew how Bruce blamed himself constantly for suffering around him. He knew Batman feared becoming violent enough to cross moral boundaries permanently if pushed too far. And Joker kept pushing, again and again, year after year. The psychological exhaustion became enormous because Batman could never fully predict how far Joker might go next. Unlike criminals motivated by money or territory, Joker cared primarily about emotional destruction and symbolic chaos. That made him impossible to negotiate with safely, because ordinary logic rarely applied. He wanted Batman emotionally destabilized above all else. Some of Joker's most horrifying moments came through manipulating trust itself. Friends became hostages, allies became targets, innocent people became psychological weapons used against Batman's conscience. Joker constantly forced Bruce Wayne into situations where saving one person endangered another, or where every possible choice carried guilt attached to it somehow. Over time, this created emotional paranoia inside Batman. Bruce Wayne already struggled trusting people after years of betrayal throughout Gotham. Joker intensified those fears by proving repeatedly that emotional attachment created vulnerability. Anyone close to Batman could become a target eventually. That truth isolated Bruce even further, because every relationship began carrying fear beneath it. Could Joker exploit this person? Could they survive knowing Batman? Would Bruce ultimately destroy their lives simply by letting them close emotionally? Joker wanted Batman trapped inside those questions constantly, because emotional isolation weakened people slowly over time. A lonely Batman became easier to destabilize psychologically. And perhaps most disturbing of all, Joker genuinely seemed to enjoy the emotional intimacy of their conflict. That intimacy carried something deeply unsettling beneath it, because Joker often acted as though he and Batman shared a connection no one else could fully understand. He spoke to Batman differently than other enemies did, almost like someone engaged in a twisted conversation stretching endlessly across years of violence and psychological warfare. At times, Joker even appeared convinced Batman secretly needed him. In Joker's mind, they completed one another symbolically. Batman represented order, Joker represented chaos. Batman inspired fear to protect morality, Joker used humor to destroy morality. Both emerged from trauma and psychological transformation. Both operated outside ordinary society. Both became symbols larger than ordinary human beings. This mirrored relationship fascinated Joker obsessively. And part of what frightened Bruce Wayne was realizing there might be some truth hidden within it. Not because Batman enjoyed Joker's crimes or chaos, but because their conflict shaped Batman's identity profoundly over time. Joker constantly forced Bruce to define what moral limits still mattered beneath endless suffering. Every confrontation became another test of Batman's refusal to kill, surrender emotionally, or abandon his principles entirely. Joker wanted that refusal broken more than anything else, because if Batman finally crossed the line into murder, rage, or psychological collapse, Joker believed he would prove something horrifying about humanity itself. That everyone breaks eventually, that morality is temporary, that civilization only pretends to exist until pain becomes unbearable enough. This ideological war transformed their relationship into something much larger than hero versus villain. Joker viewed Batman almost like an experiment, constantly being tested through trauma, guilt, and emotional manipulation. He engineered scenarios specifically designed to expose what he believed hid beneath Bruce Wayne's discipline, madness, and sometimes Batman feared Joker might be right. That fear became one of Bruce's darkest private struggles, because after enough years inside Gotham's violence, after enough deaths, betrayals, and emotional scars, Batman often stood dangerously close to rage and psychological collapse himself. Bruce Wayne survived through control, routine, discipline, and moral structure, holding his trauma together carefully. Joker attacked those structures relentlessly. The terrifying part was how personal the attacks often became. Joker rarely targeted Batman randomly. He chose emotional pressure points with surgical precision. He understood Bruce's need to protect innocent people. He understood his guilt surrounding failed rescues. He understood the loneliness hiding beneath Batman's mission. Sometimes, Joker even manipulated Batman into questioning his own sanity. Certain storylines explored the horrifying possibility that Joker knew Bruce Wayne's identity, understood his emotional weaknesses completely, or perhaps even viewed Batman as the only person genuinely capable of understanding him in return. These moments created psychological horror because they blurred the line between enemy and reflection. Batman began wondering uncomfortable things. Why did Joker focus on him so obsessively? Why did their conflict feel strangely intimate sometimes? Why did Joker seem capable of predicting his emotional reactions so accurately? The answers terrified Bruce because they suggested Joker understood him almost as deeply as Alfred, his family, or his closest allies did. Only Joker used that understanding for emotional destruction instead of love. And Gotham itself amplified this endless psychological war constantly. The city's instability created perfect conditions for Joker's philosophy to spread. Citizens already lived beside fear, corruption, and trauma daily. Joker simply stripped away remaining illusions through violence and chaos designed to expose emotional weakness hiding beneath Gotham's public order. He wanted Gotham laughing while it burned. More importantly, he wanted Batman watching helplessly while it happened. Over time, Joker became less like an ordinary criminal and more like a living force, attacking Batman's emotional stability continuously. Every encounter reopened old wounds. Every tragedy deepened Bruce's guilt. Every manipulated ally reinforced fear surrounding trust and attachment. And still Batman refused to kill him. That refusal fascinated Joker endlessly because it represented the one moral line Bruce Wayne protected more fiercely than anything else. Joker understood that crossing into execution would destroy Batman psychologically, even if it ended the violence temporarily. So he kept pushing harder, hoping, waiting, trying to force Bruce Wayne into becoming something closer to himself. And perhaps that was the cruelest truth hidden beneath their endless conflict. Joker did not merely want Batman defeated. He wanted Batman transformed. He wanted Gotham's greatest symbol of discipline, morality, and emotional control dragged slowly into chaos, until Bruce Wayne finally looked into the mirror and saw not a hero standing there anymore, but another broken soul laughing in the darkness beside him. The loneliness of Batman. By the time Batman had spent years fighting the endless darkness surrounding Gotham City, betrayal no longer shocked Bruce Wayne the way it once had during childhood, because Gotham slowly trained people to expect disappointment eventually. Friends could become enemies, institutions could become corrupted, mentors could manipulate, allies could hide dangerous truths. Even the people Bruce loved most sometimes carried secrets, anger, trauma, or emotional wounds capable of turning relationships into sources of pain rather than comfort. Over time, Batman adapted to this reality, the same way Gotham's citizens adapted to storms, violence, and fear. He built emotional armor around himself. At first, Bruce Wayne never intended to become isolated in the way he eventually did. After losing his parents, part of him still wanted connection deeply. He wanted family, trust, loyalty, and belonging, because those things represented the emotional safety Gotham stole from him as a child. Yet each betrayal throughout his life slowly taught him the same painful lesson again and again. Attachment creates vulnerability, and vulnerability creates suffering. Harvey Dent became Two-Face. Jason Todd died and returned, transformed into Red Hood. Talia al Ghul loved Bruce while still manipulating him through the influence of the League of Assassins. Thomas Elliot turned childhood friendship into hatred as Hush. The Court of Owls revealed Gotham itself carried hidden truths beyond Batman's understanding. Even Superman, one of Bruce's closest allies, existed beneath layers of caution and contingency plans shaped by fear. And always, somewhere in the background, the Joker continued attacking Batman's mind relentlessly, trying to corrupt every remaining emotional connection Bruce still possessed. After enough years of this, emotional isolation stopped feeling temporary. It became survival. Bruce Wayne learned to watch people carefully before trusting them. He studied body language, inconsistencies, hidden motives, and emotional shifts constantly because Gotham punished blind trust brutally. Batman became the world's greatest detective partly because Bruce Wayne stopped believing appearances meant anything anymore. Every smile could hide resentment. Every alliance could conceal manipulation. Every friendship carried the possibility of betrayal, waiting quietly beneath the surface. That mindset protected Batman many times throughout his life. But it also cost him enormously, because endless suspicion changes people slowly, even when the suspicion feels justified. Bruce Wayne spent so much time preparing for betrayal that genuine emotional closeness became difficult for him to accept fully. Even during moments of happiness, part of his mind remained alert, analyzing danger and anticipating loss before it happened. He rarely allowed himself to relax completely around others, because experience taught him how quickly safety could disappear. This emotional distance shaped nearly every relationship in his life. Batman cared deeply for people, perhaps more deeply than most realized, but expressing that care openly often frightened him, because love inside Gotham usually came attached to pain eventually. Bruce feared losing people. He feared failing them. He feared watching Gotham destroy them the way it destroyed so many others before. So instead of opening himself emotionally, he controlled himself harder. He buried grief beneath discipline, buried fear beneath preparation, buried loneliness beneath the mission. The problem was that emotional isolation slowly creates another kind of suffering over time. Batman surrounded himself with allies, partners, and family figures, yet often still felt emotionally alone because few people truly understood the full weight Bruce carried internally. Gotham demanded endless vigilance from him. The city never stopped producing violence, corruption, and tragedy. Every night brought another crisis, requiring Batman's attention. Rest became difficult, peace became unfamiliar, and trust became exhausting, because trusting someone inside Gotham meant accepting the terrifying possibility that they could be hurt, manipulated, corrupted, or taken away someday. Bruce Wayne understood this too well after years of trauma. Part of him believed emotional distance might protect both himself and the people he loved from further pain. Yet another part of him quietly suffered, because human beings are not meant to live entirely alone. This contradiction sat at the center of Batman's identity. Bruce Wayne desperately wanted connection while simultaneously fearing it. He wanted loyalty while expecting betrayal. He wanted family while believing Gotham eventually destroys families. And perhaps nowhere did this contradiction become clearer than inside Wayne Manor itself. The enormous mansion often felt less like a home and more like a monument to grief and responsibility. Beneath it stretched the Batcave, cold, mechanical, hidden beneath stone and darkness like Bruce Wayne's emotional life itself. Advanced computers glowed through endless nights while Batman monitored Gotham obsessively, surrounded by evidence boards, case files, weapons, and memories of people he failed to save. Even when others stood beside him, loneliness lingered there. Because Bruce rarely allowed himself to fully stop being Batman emotionally, that constant state of vigilance slowly exhausted him in ways physical injuries never could. Most people survive difficult experiences by leaning emotionally on others, but Batman often processed suffering alone because vulnerability felt dangerous after so many betrayals throughout his life. and Gotham reinforced this fear constantly. The city itself seemed designed to punish emotional openness. Honest people became targets. Families experienced tragedy. Children inherited trauma. Corruption infected institutions repeatedly. Gotham transformed pain into cycles lasting generations. Over time, Bruce Wayne began wondering whether true trust was even possible inside such a place. Could anyone living in Gotham remain untouched by fear, manipulation, or emotional damage forever? Could relationships survive endless violence and secrecy? Could Batman himself ever truly belong to ordinary human life anymore after everything he experienced? These questions haunted Bruce quietly during moments between battles when Gotham grew temporarily silent beneath the rain, especially late at night, because nighttime forced Batman alone with his thoughts in ways combat and investigation often prevented. While standing above Gotham's skyline, Bruce sometimes reflected on how many people he lost emotionally over the years. Some died, some changed, some betrayed him. Others simply drifted away beneath the pressure of living too close to Batman's world. And beneath all of that loss remained the frightened child from Crime Alley, still searching for something the city stole long ago. Safety, belonging, trust. Yet Gotham rarely returned what it took from people. Instead, the city shaped them around their wounds until survival itself became identity. Batman represented Gotham's greatest example of this transformation. A man who turned grief into purpose so completely that he eventually struggled separating himself from the mission anymore. Bruce Wayne often seemed less like a person and more like a guardian created by Gotham's suffering itself. That realization carried enormous sadness. Because while Batman protected countless lives, he sacrificed large parts of his own emotional peace in return. The mission demanded constant attention. Relationships required compromise. Batman rarely knew how to make safely. Every connection carried fear attached to it somewhere beneath the surface. And still, despite everything, Bruce Wayne never stopped caring. That was perhaps the most important truth hidden beneath Batman's loneliness. The emotional walls surrounding him did not exist because he lacked love or compassion. They existed because he felt those things too strongly. Every betrayal hurt deeply because Bruce genuinely trusted and cared for people, despite how carefully he guarded himself outwardly. That pain accumulated over time like rainwater inside Gotham's old stone foundations, invisible at first, then slowly impossible to ignore. Sometimes, Bruce looked at Gotham and wondered whether the city itself created loneliness deliberately. Fear isolated people. Corruption weakened trust. Trauma made vulnerability frightening. Gotham transformed emotional survival into caution until citizens stopped reaching toward one another openly. Batman became the ultimate reflection of that reality. A protector watching over everyone while standing emotionally apart from them at the same time. And perhaps that was the final tragedy of Bruce Wayne's life. Not the physical injuries, not the endless battles, not even the betrayals themselves, but the quiet realization that the city he loved most had shaped him into someone who could save others endlessly while still struggling to fully save himself from isolation. As night settles once more across Gotham City, rain falls softly against rooftops and silent streets, while pale lights glow through the fog, drifting between enormous buildings. Somewhere below, criminals move through alleyways, police sirens echo in the distance, and exhausted citizens continue living inside the city's endless cycle of fear and survival. High above them all, Batman stands alone at the edge of a rooftop, cape moving gently in the cold wind while the skyline stretches endlessly before him. The city that created him, the city that betrayed him. And still, despite everything, the city he cannot stop protecting. And now, as the rain continues falling softly across the rooftops of Gotham City, the betrayals, broken friendships, hidden lies, and painful memories we followed through the night begin to drift quietly into the distance, no longer sharp with anger or sorrow, but softened by time, like old echoes fading between the city's towering buildings. The faces of Harvey Dent, Jason Todd, Talia al Ghul, and all the others who shaped Batman's long journey slowly disappear back into Gotham's endless shadows, where memories rest beneath pale streetlights and quiet fog. And somewhere high above the sleeping city, Batman still watches silently from the darkness, carrying every scar, every loss, and every broken promise within him, yet continuing forward all the same. You can let Gotham grow quieter now, let the storm move farther away, and simply rest beneath the calm rhythm of distant rain as the city fades softly into the night and everything slowly becomes still.